What's going on, guys? It's Dude here, and today I'm back with a brand new video. Now, in a community post a few days ago, I said I would make a video discussing the physics. Because I try to be a man of my word, I'm going to be doing that today. Now, the 1.31 update as a whole, I'm not going to rag on it too much. They added 4 new cars as well as a couple new layouts for the Nürburgring, which is extremely good. I think the more variety as far as the sandbox elements like cars and tracks, the better the game will become and the more replay value we'll have over time. But like I said, today I'm going to be discussing more of my opinion on the physics, as this is most definitely the biggest physics update that's come in Gran Turismo 7's life so far. Now, I want to ask before I get started, if you guys find this video helpful and or entertaining, to click that subscribe button as well as leave a like and comment. It really helps me out in the YouTube algorithm, and I really appreciate the support, guys. Now that the 1.31 update has came and went, I'm honestly pretty conflicted and I'm feeling a lot of different emotions and different feelings on this physics update. But I want to start off by saying one of the more notable things that I've noticed people talking about is the lack of traction coming out of low speed corners, of course, when applying the throttle. I personally don't have any issue with this whatsoever. I do recognize that it is a little bit more difficult to come out of corners on traction, but I don't think that's much of a problem. Many of the cars that I've driven are designed to be run with traction control anyways and are very difficult to drive without traction control, at least many of the high powered cars. Not only do I feel like the car is a little bit more fun in this regard, but it's also more realistic. Now, when talking about the more negative side of these physics, a common misconception I'm seeing, especially on a lot of forums and Facebook pages, is that if you don't enjoy these new 1.31 physics, it means that you like to overdrive the car, either on entry or on exit. And while these physics do punish poor driving technique a little bit more, I don't think that if you have a criticism of the physics engine, it automatically means you're bad at the game. I think that's really stupid to say. In fact, myself, being a top split North American driver, I still have a lot of criticisms, especially regarding the front engine cars as well as some of the four-wheel drive cars. I do not think this physics engine is perfect. I find entering corners to be very cumbersome in a lot of the front engine cars. The car does not like to rotate, and although with the improved force feedback, I really do feel like I'm shackled by the grip of the front tires, and there's nothing I can really do with the setup to try to improve that turn in and get the car to drive more on the limit. Now, when I'm entering a corner, I personally want the car to feel like it's balanced on all 4 tires as opposed to just killing the front tires. When I'm entering a right-hand corner that's medium to low speed, I want to feel like the left rear tire is yawing and it's working a little bit harder on a front engine car. Because if I get that additional rotation, I can use a very light amount of steering to guide the car and balance the car on the pedals. On this update, you cannot do that. But it honestly just feels like I'm constantly leaning on the front tires, understeering, and I have to be very particular and specific with my inputs and plan out my approach. Although you could feel more at the limit due to the improved force feedback, I find myself really just trying to memorize inputs because at the end of the day, the car ends up handling so one-dimensionally at the limit, and front engine cars have definitely suffered in my opinion, especially the GR3 ones. Once again, I do think the best drivers will always adapt and will find ways to take the corners optimally, but I do think it's a lot less fun on this update to drive a front engine car. Even if you set up the car to be a little bit more lively and neutral on entry, you end up losing a lot of your low speed rear traction as a result of your setup changes, which is never worth it. And a lot of people might think that's more realistic. And well, like I said, certain road cars that I've driven as well as certain mid-engine cars, especially in the Group 3 category, do feel quite a bit better. I feel as though the amount of cars that needed to be changed was such a low number that they could have just tweaked those individual cars instead of changing the entire physics engine. One more positive thing I will say is I also really like the force feedback. I do feel like it's a lot more communicative at the limit. It's just a shame that we do not have the tire model or the downforce that we had in the previous update to feel what that corner entry is on the limit of a car that doesn't plow. And while the force feedback does feel much better, I feel like that's offset by the fact that I really don't enjoy this particular tire model. Of course, probably none of us here that are watching the video have driven a GT3 car in real life, but I would like to think that most drivers and teams would not settle for a car that understeers the way some of the front engine and high downforce race cars do now. Well, now that I'm done complaining, I'm going to give you guys some setup tips now that this update's been out for a little while now. At the time I'm recording this, it's been about 2 days that this update's been out, and I've had some time to drive the cars, and I think I have a few setup adjustments that are going to help a lot on the 1.31 update. The first thing I recommend, especially on some of the race cars, is to increase your rear camber. Now, this was a lot more effective in Gran Turismo Sport, but in this game now with this update, I find increasing the rear camber does help the turn in quite a bit. It helps the car feel a little bit more predictable when transitioning in the middle of a slow corner. That's just kind of a feel thing, but if you had your car at 1.0 rear camber, I recommend going up 2.0. Some cars you can go as high as 3. I would say the Goldilocks zone though is between 2.0 and 2.8 for most cars. One thing I've noticed even on this update on some of the front engine Group 3 cars is that if I try to increase the ride height in the rear, not only do I lose a lot of my straight line speed, but the car still doesn't really turn in the way that I need it to. It becomes more oversteery, but it doesn't actually help me rotate through the corners in the way that I like it to. So I've almost doubled down on the fact that the car is going to understeer, and I've actually lowered the rear natural frequency and softened it up all the way on my DBR9 setup. Now this is a big drastic change, and it does slightly hurt my cornering a little bit at high speed. With that being said, now that there's less traction coming out of the low speed corners, I do feel as though I could put down the power sooner, more predictably, and in lower gears more consistently while I'm in the heart of the power band, which helps me a lot coming out of low speed corners. And also it does increase my top speed very slightly. And again, the cons is you do lose a bit of your high speed cornering, but it's really not that noticeable on a lot of these GR3 cars, especially the front engine ones. I actually prefer this over running a stiffer rear end like I did on the last update. And the last thing to take note of is that the downforce values on most cars in this game have changed, as in they've basically added more range to how low you can go on the front downforce and how high you can go on the rear downforce. Now this is a very positive change that I discussed briefly in my top 10 tuning mistakes video that I made a little while back. But this is a very welcome change. I actually find myself going up on the rear downforce quite a bit. And of course, if you're a driver that likes to run tracks like Route X or Daytona, being able to turn the front downforce down even more than you could prior is going to make your cars faster. But yeah, overall, while I don't like the update, the more that I drive on it, the more that it grows on me and the more that I'm adapting to it. I do think the setup adjustments, particularly with the natural frequency as well as the camber, should help you retune some of your setups. Most of the setup options like the ride height, anti-roll bars, as well as the damping ratios do behave similarly to what they did on the last update. But because of the physics, of course, you want to tweak things and try to make sure to account for the differences on this update. So yeah, guys, that's about it for this video today. I really hope it wasn't too negative for your liking, but I did want to state my opinion as well as some helpful advice that I've gathered over the last couple days to make the update and the physics changes a little bit less jarring. If you did enjoy the video and or find it helpful, clicking that subscribe button really helps me out a lot. Also, leaving a like and commenting what you guys think of the physics update to me is extremely interesting. I read all the comments, so I would like to hear your guys' opinion to see what you guys think. But other than that, guys, I don't want to let this drag on too long. It's been Dude, and I'm out. Peace.